Welcome to the Me, Myself, and You podcast. My name's Sarah, and I'm your host, and I'm really glad to have you back for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the Enneagram and personal development. If you know me in my personal life, I have to admit I'm a little bit Enneagram obsessed. I just think it's a lot of fun, and I'm kind of obsessed with the cute graphics that all the people on Instagram make that are, typical Enneagram type things like, if you're an Enneagram 6, you really like cozy things and coffee mugs and fuzzy blankets and whatever. But it's also a really great stepping stone for learning more about yourself and your tendencies and your core motivations. This is why it's a really great tool for self-development, personal development, whatever, if I swap between the two, because it really helps you understand how your brain works. So, that being said, let's talk about figuring out your Enneagram number. Personally, I took an online quiz quite a while ago, and basically this one gave me my top 3 that I was most like. And I went and read up on those and figured out which ones sounded the most like me. So honestly, that's what I recommend you do, because a quiz is not going to be a perfect system, but taking one that's going to give you like, okay, well, these are the ones I lean towards the most, and being able to go and read about those and identify, oh yeah, that sounds exactly like me, or that's not quite right, whatever. I think is a great starting point. So, and it's okay if the ones that you test for are not ones that you relate to. You're welcome to read about all of them and figure out which one really sounds like you. I really think with the Enneagram, the biggest thing that it comes down to is your core motivation. The difference is for each number are really that core motivation, that core desire. For example, I am an Enneagram 6, which means my core desire is stability. Another thing you'll learn about as you're reading about your Enneagram number is those like negative and positive qualities and tendencies, those things that, when you're healthy, you tend to do this, and when you're unhealthy, you tend to do this. And I think that's a really helpful way to recognize where you're at mentally and what you have the tendency to do and how you tend to respond and how you tend to think. And I think it's important to understand that all of these are tendencies. They're not excuses for, whatever not great behavior. They're not excuses to not make change and to not do better. And that's where you can use knowing those things about yourself. So if I know that I'm a 6 and I crave stability, but I tend to think about, I tend to be a little bit of a skeptic. I tend to be untrusting with new people. And if I'm aware of that, I can, spend more time trying to change that thought pattern around relationships and not assuming that people are out to get me. So that's, a good example of that. So I think, we've kind of delved right into this. Using the Enneagram as a tool to improve yourself is what I think is so key to this. It's important to just realize that by knowing how you think, you are more empowered to make change more effectively. I was doing a little bit of reading in preparation for this episode, and I found some growth tips for an Enneagram 6, which is, like I said, what I am. And one of them that I thought was really interesting was developing healthy habits to release anxiety. This has actually been one of my goals this year because I feel like having that foundation, that stability, again, core motivations, is really good for me and reaching towards my goals and feeling good. And this particular one goes into how exercise is really important for sixes because we tend to spend so much time in our heads overthinking everything. So putting that energy into your body is really critical. And I have to admit that's something that I've struggled to do over the last year. Postpartum, I just didn't really dive back in. And it's something I'm trying to do in the month of March. I'm doing one of the Yoga with Adriene challenges. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll continue into April. You'll have to check my Instagram and see if I've updated you. But that's one example. And I think you can learn a lot from just reading about your type and reading about those. I mean, you can find growth tips everywhere about your own Enneagram type, but I think it really is a mindset shift to understand what your brain wants and how it works and what your thought process is. So I hope that's helpful. If you want to take a quiz to find out your Enneagram type, I really like the Truity one, Truity. I may be pronouncing that completely wrong. They do like a wheel with like colors for each one, so you can see exactly which ones and how much of a difference they are. Like, I'm not explaining this well at all. You can basically see the different levels of, oh, okay, this wedge for 6 is filled almost all the way up, or this one for 1 is like nothing. So that's a really great way if you are still trying to figure out which Enneagram you are. And I didn't really dive into wings in this episode, but wings are basically like if you lean a little bit to one side or the other of your Enneagram type. So for example, I'm a 6 wing 5, but I'm a pretty strong 6. So I might take on some qualities of a 5 at times, but my core motivation is definitely still that 6. Anyways, there's a lot of Enneagram information out there. Dive into it, research it, and figure out how to use it to better yourself, to make better goals, to understand how to get to your goals more effectively. It's a great tool, and it's something I'm learning how to use currently. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, I would love if you could leave me a review, follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It really helps me when you share my podcast as well, if you have a friend that you think would like it. So I think that's it. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk at you again soon.